Several years ago, I had the opportunity to review the Nanoleaf Essential smart lights and found them impressive. These smart lights added a vibrant, colourful touch to my home. They consistently worked well in HomeKit and the Apple Home without any issues via Thread. Nanoleaf has been slowly expanding its product line. However, what sets these apart that I'm going to review today is they support Matter, making them compatible with Apple Home and other smart home platforms. I had previously reviewed the GU10 versions and found a number of shortcomings, and now it's time to bring you a review of the Downlights. Nanoleaf sent me over a 4-pack of Downlights for this review, but to be 100% clear, HomeKit Authority remains full editorial control over the content in our reviews. This means we'll point out the good and bad about the product to give you our best opinion. Continue to watch this review to find out my thoughts on the Matter version of the Nanoleaf Essentials Downlights. So let's first start with the design and features. The smart bulbs just look like any ordinary downlights and don't appear to have a much additional bulk, unlike the IKEA ones I've installed in my utility room. The Matter downlights feature 16 million colours and tunable whites. They have a maximum brightness of 550 lumens, although the colours are lower lumen values with a colour range and temperature from 2700 Kelvin to 6500. They connect either via Bluetooth or Matter over Thread, and you can control them via the Nanoleaf app, voice assistants like Siri, and integrations with Apple Home. It's important to emphasize that for the downlights to function in Apple Home, you require a Matter-compatible Smart Hub with Thread support to connect to the HomeKit platform. Examples of such hubs, serving as both Matter hubs and Thread-boarded routers, include the Apple HomePod Mini, the latest generation Apple TV 4K, and the most recent HomePod full size. Now moving on to setup. Installing the downlights is a bit more involved than swapping out a standard bulb. Because these are recessed fixtures, you need to deal with the existing wiring and fit the smart light into the ceiling cutout. Now, if you've not already got all these, you have to do even more by cutting things out. So just bearing that in mind if you're going to buy them. It's not difficult, but it's certainly more hands-on than simply screwing in any light. So this requires completely cutting off the power to the light fixtures and installing them in place after you removed your existing light fittings. Once the Nanoleaf downlights were fitted and the powers were restored, I used my iPhone to begin the setup. Now, Nanoleaf recommends starting in its own app before adding anything to Apple Home, so I began the onboarding process there. This was straightforward enough and was fairly quick, but before I could even add or even attempt to add them to HomeKit, the app told me the lights required a critical firmware update. This took around 5 minutes each time, and it would not allow me to add another downlight until I completed the update, and this added yet another chunk of time to the overall setup process. After the update completed, I should be able to add the downlights directly to HomeKit. But again, I had to wait a few minutes for the downlights to switch over from Bluetooth to Thread to complete the Matter setup for HomeKit via the Nanoleaf app. Although I want to point out I could have added them to HomeKit without waiting for the switch over to Thread, but I wanted to do it as is the process a consumer would follow, and I wanted to show I was reviewing them from that point of view. Setup in HomeKit works like any other device. You choose a room, give it a name, and add it to your automations if you have any in place. So overall, the full install took about 45 minutes, including fitting the downlights, wiring them in, completing the setup, and waiting for the critical updates to happen, and then finally adding them to HomeKit. So let's move on to what they like to use in HomeKit. The downlights work just like any other smart device in Apple Home with dimming, color controls in the app. So right in the Home app, you can control the brightness of the bulbs and adjust the color choices using the scroll wheel or preset ones, depending on how you want to use them. I did find that fast and responsive. You also work with Siri commands like turn on the lights, and I found this worked fine with no noticeable lag. But it's when it comes with HomeKit automations that I find I get the most out of smart bulbs in my home. This is because I include the bulbs in my existing HomeKit automations, which allow me to turn them off at certain points of the day. So for instance, I included in my good night scene to turn them off at a certain point. As with the original Nanoleaf Essentials that are certified to use with HomeKit adaptive lighting, the downlights are too. When I originally reviewed the GU10 Matter versions, there was not, and this was because Matter at the time did not support this feature. However, I'm pleased to confirm that these work well with adaptive lighting. Although it's not something I use personally, it'll be welcome news for those that do. I installed these downlights in my ensuite and I paired them with a motion sensor so the lights turn on when someone walks in, then stay on for a set period of time before switching off again. It's a very simple automation, but it makes a huge difference in a space like a bathroom or an ensuite or something that is only occupied for a small period of time. No fumbling for switches, no leaving lights on by accident. I do plan, however, to migrate this to a presence sensor in the near future because I do feel that presence sensors are a lot more useful in these particular environments. And whilst I do prefer managing my smart devices in the Home app using automations and various different other ways, when it comes to some of the Nanoleaf devices, I often utilize it because it's far more extensive for customization, particularly the shapes or the lines products, for instance. The Nanoleaf app is, in my opinion, a very good app when paired with its lighting products, offering access to 16 million colors and allowing complete control over the customization. The app provides access to color palettes, scenes, and allows you to create your own light options. In the basic section, there's a rainbow palette enabling the selection of different colors, allows you to use frequently used colors and brightness settings. The real gem lies in the scene section where you can either opt for pre-designed Nanoleaf scenes or craft your own, giving you options like northern lights and morning sky. For this particular product, I don't think it's particularly useful. However, you might want to use it and it's worth pointing out. Nanoleaf also gives you the option to create your own light colors and patterns, allowing you to construct the scene you desire. It's versatile enough to let you select your own color schemes. You can also choose from 7 different patterns such as fade, flow, burst, and organic. With each of these options, you can also tailor how each pattern cycles through the colors. Although I typically use the Nanoleaf app quite a lot with Nanoleaf products, in this particular case, other than doing the testing and seeing how the colors performed, I used it primarily in HomeKit, and that's just basically because this product is something that's in my ensuite. It works as intended, and the automations control everything. So the overall review summary: the smart bulbs are impressive, and they have surprised me, if I'm being totally honest, given the performance and the price point. At $89.99 for the 4-pack, they're just over half the price of the Philips Hue option. I found the light performance better than the lights around a similar price point. While the colour performance falls short of the Hue standard, these bulbs have earned a place in my HomeKit setup and replaced the IKEA colour bulbs. Now, I will be buying more of these for my utility room. I love the fact they come with Thread support built in and not only provide near instant responses because of this, but as I've mentioned, I have experienced a no response on a number of occasions when using these, and during the first setup, it took a while for them to transfer over from Bluetooth. Additionally, when I was testing the colour changes, a number of the bulbs did seem slower to change the colour. Whilst this might not be a massive issue and not something I would have noticed in day-to-day use if I wasn't testing this, I did notice it more when I was testing the colour changes. Now, when I was simply using the automations and day-to-day use, as I've already said, everything seems to work fine because it's simply turning on the normal white option, but it seems to only do this with the colour options. It's also great to see HomeKit adaptive lighting is now available for the Matter versions, and this is good news to those that use this feature. The setup process was longer than normal products, and the time they took to migrate to Bluetooth was longer than it should have been. That said, the setup was definitely on the tricky side, but it still wasn't as a complicated and frustrating experience I had with the original GU10s I reviewed. Although I've since installed these again, and those issues appear to have gone away, so Nanoleaf has certainly worked on setup and reliability, which is good to find out. Overall, I'm impressed with the Matter versions of the Nanoleaf Essentials lineup. Once they finally connected, they perform well, and it's great to see a downlight option at a genuine competitive price. However, if I'm completely honest, I still prefer the HomeKit only versions. They've given me fewer no response issues over time, and this is something I value in my smart home. However, they're not available for sale anymore, but if you can try and grab some of the original bulbs, they're certainly worth buying. So that's a wrap on this review, and hopefully you found it useful. If you have, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out more videos right here and follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Follow HomeKit. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you soon.